So you got yourself a nice HD or standard def TV, but now you need a way to back up and archive your content.
Get yourself a TiVo or Windows Media Center edition, but the problem is you're going to be stuck with a lot of files with digital rights management attached to it.
Yeah, forget DRM. Today we're going to show you everything you need to know about the open source alternative, Mythtv.
I'm Dan Heward.
I'm Kevin Rose. Welcome to Systm. If you're unfamiliar with Mythtv, you're going to love it. It's open source DVR software that sits directly on top of Linux.
Right.
It has pretty much the same functionality as, say, your TiVo. It has the ability to record and save live program feeds, has great program data, and it also has the ability to log into a web interface and pick the shows that you want to record.
Honestly, the most important feature, I think, Kevin, you'd agree with me with this as well, is that it's absolutely free.
Right, there's no monthly subscription fee or anything like that like some of the other PVR providers.
Exactly. So now that we're going to build this whole Mythtv box up, what sort of hardware are we going to look for?
Well, it depends on if you want to go with a software-based encoder or a hardware-based encoder. If you go with a hardware-based, like say a Matrox G200 or a Hauppauge PVR 250 or 350, it's actually going to take a lot of the strain off of the CPU and put it directly onto the card. Now this is a good thing because it has lower system requirements. You can get away with a machine that's say like a P3 500 megahertz with 256 megs of RAM, versus when you go software-based, you have to have a lot beefier machine, somewhere around a gigahertz per stream that you want to encode.
Okay, so now speaking of streams, it's like we're talking about like if you want to watch CSI and The Simpsons at the same time, you need two cards, two tuners, and you probably need, what, like a 2 gigahertz processor as well.
Exactly, 1 gigahertz per stream and a half a gigabyte of RAM and you should be good to go. All right, so we got our PC put together. This one cost us about $350 in parts. It's got an Inforce 2 motherboard, an AMD Athlon XP 3200 Plus, and about a gigabyte of RAM. For the capture card, I went with one from AverMedia. This one runs about $50, but most importantly, it's compatible with video for Linux.
Now for me, I'm most concerned about capturing high-def content. So the card that I found was from PC HDTV. It's the HD3000.
That's a great card. It's going to run you about $170, but it only works with Linux, but that's okay because that's what Mythtv does.
Right. So now speaking of high-def content, what kind of storage capacity are we talking about?
Well, you're going to want to get as big a hard drive as you possibly can afford because these files are going to take up a lot of space.
Oh, yeah.
When we're talking about MPEG-4 encoded streams, we're talking about between 700 to 2 gigabytes of space per every 1 hour of recorded video. Now, if you're talking about MPEG-2, we're talking even higher amounts of space.
Okay, so MPEG-2, MPEG-4, what's the difference?
Well, MPEG-4 is a newer codec, but MPEG-2 is compatible with DVD, so a lot of people prefer to capture an MPEG-2. That way you don't have to transcode if you ever want to burn it back to a DVD.
Okay, well, let's put it in the card. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
So we have the card. Now we need to install a distribution of Linux.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many to choose from. Obviously, you can use any distro of Linux that you want, as long as you compile it yourself. Some distributions make it a little easier than others. Debian has great packages for it. So does Fedora. But we're using one today that we believe is the absolute easiest for you. It's called NotMyth.
It's kind of like Knoppix, where it's a bootable OS.
Exactly. It's based off of Knoppix, but rather than booting you into the OS, it actually takes you to the installation menu and will install it right onto your hard drive.
Okay. What sort of options do we have to install?
So we have several different options to choose from once you get into the system. The first being setting up the box as a front-end computer. And what that means is it's going to turn this machine into a client that actually connects to another Myth server, pulls down all the programs, and actually you're able to watch it on that machine.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So we're not going to use that though because we need to set up our first box to begin with. So we're going to go down to option number 2, which is auto install. We'll go ahead and hit enter there. And it's going to take us to the next thing is the time zone. And you're thinking, no, normally all these options you just skip on through, like who cares about the time zone? It's actually very important that you get your time set correctly because if you don't, your program guide information won't sync up with the time that you have on your machine.
Exactly.
You'll start recording the wrong shows, the wrong times. You don't want that to happen. So after you set that up, go ahead and hit enter. And now it takes you to a screen that says, are you sure you really want to install? Now, this is very important because you don't want to have any other data on your hard drive that you might want, any other partitions.
Right, it's completely destructive, so anything that's on there is gone.
Right, it's going to overwrite everything, so make sure it's a brand new blank hard drive. We're going to choose yes here and hit enter. Now it asks us for our whole name.
Right.
So we're just putting here, standard stuff. We'll put in Kevin Rose, choose next. Username that we'd like to use, this is a shortened version of that, obviously. We'll put K Rose. Password, we'll go ahead and input our password.
Okay, so that's a user password.
Yeah, that's just a standard user password. Now here is the admin password, otherwise known as the root password. We'll use something a little bit more complex and retype that. And now it's asking for our host name. Mythtv is fine. Like I said, this has already come pre-configured with most of these settings pretty much taken care of for you. All you have to do is hit enter. Are you sure you want all these parameters? Choose yes. And now it's warning us one more time.
One last time.
Do you really want to install? So make sure you have a brand new blank hard drive, of course. Choose yes here. So there it goes. Installation's beginning, and we'll just let that finish up.
So after reboot, we've copied everything from the disk to the hard drive. Now it's ready to go. Now we just need to go into the configuration menu.
Yeah, so we go in here, we put in our root password is the first thing. And now it's going to ask us about the time zone again. Now we just want to verify everything is correct as far as date and time, and go ahead and hit enter. Now it brings us to the DHCP broadcast. Now it's not talking about actually broadcasting from this machine, but the ability to receive a DHCP, an IP address from a DHCP server. So we'll say yes, of course we want this because we want an IP address. And now it's going to go ahead and start up our Ethernet device. It started up okay. And it's going to collect the IP address. So now it's going to ask us about the type of module that we want. It's basically asking our processor type at this point. An i586 or i686 computer. We have an Athlon XP 3200 plus, so we're going to go with the i686 module. Choose number 6 here, and then choose OK. So the next options are for module functionality. The first question being, do you have an infrared remote control? This is referring to the capture card and whether it has infrared capabilities under Linux.
And most people want a remote control because it pretty much untethers you from your computer or your television or whatever. So.
Definitely. The next option that we're asking here is video card capable of XVMC. This stands for X Video Motion Compensation.
And it's generally meant for NVIDIA cards with TV out, coaxial, S-Video, whatever.
Now we don't have either of these options, so we're not going to check either one and just go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so now we're actually inside of Mythtv, and it's going to ask us a couple quick questions. First being, do you want to clear all of your capture card settings?
Right, and it just depends. If you're upgrading, no, you want to leave your card settings alone. But in this case, it's a fresh install, so clear the card settings.
So we'll say yes, delete my card settings. Go ahead and hit enter, and then now it's going to ask us, do we want to clear all of the program data and channel information? Again, this is a brand new, fresh, clean install. So we'll say yes, delete my channel settings. All right, so we're here. This is the main Mythtv configuration page.
This is it.
Well, we've been through like 4 or 5 different configuration pages, but finally we're here.
We're sure.
Yes, so let's go into the general settings right here and configure some stuff. The first thing you're going to see here is the IP address for Mythtv. Don't get freaked out here because it's not your like real world external IP address. This is actually your internal IP address of the backend server 127001, which is correct because it's just pointing at the local machine.
Right, so pretty much keep everything standard here.
Yeah, keep everything standard. There's some other options for live TV buffers. You can adjust some of this stuff. But the most important thing in this general setup is the channel frequency table. Now, our cable system here runs US cable HRC, but you might want to call your local cable provider and see what you're running because that can vary from location to location.
Right, and for myself, mine was US cable. It's completely different, so it just depends.
Yeah, definitely want to set that up correct though. Go ahead and choose all the way through next here and then move on to the next menu, which is capture cards. First thing they ask us is to add a new capture card. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. And there's several different cards to choose from. Here you can see the first thing is standard video for Linux capture card, which is what we have. But you can choose the little drop down here and you can see all the different cards that are available. There's the Matrox G200 like we talked about, the PVR 250 and 350, which is the MPEG 2 encoder cards. Also, here's the one that you like, the PC-HDTV HD3000, which is a great card. Another option we want to tell you about is the FireWire input. Now this is kind of cool. If you have a standard cable box that has a FireWire out, you can just go directly from that port into your FireWire in your computer and use the input to capture on.
Oh, that's nice. That's really cool.
It's really cool, but sometimes some of the cable providers, they actually deaden the FireWire port. So some people are like, why isn't it working? But it's actually because they haven't enabled it yet. But that is an option in case your cable provider does offer it. Cool. So we'll go ahead and choose our card here, which was the standard video for Linux. Leave all the settings pretty much default, and then go down to the finish and hit enter, and then there our card has been added. All right, the next thing to do is set up our video sources. This is pretty much where Mythtv goes out and pulls down all of our program guide information. We'll go ahead and hit enter here and go into new video source, and we're going to have to set up a username and password in order to pull down this information.
Right, the first thing you need to do is head over to the Mythtv website and go through the documentation. They're going to give you a little registration code, and what you're going to do is you're going to take that little bit of information, go over to labs.zaptoit.com, and You input that, and it's going to allow you to bring down all those program listings.
Yeah, it's going to ask you for your zip code and then your cable provider. It'll match up perfectly so that you can get the right guide information. So we'll go ahead and put in our video source name here. So we'll just call it Zap to It, and then choose our user ID, which is SYSTM05, our password, which is Mythbox. And then we'll choose Retrieve Lineups. Now that's connecting to Zap to It, and you can see right now it's pulled down that we're in Comcast cable in 90066 because that was already set up at the website. The last thing you really have to be sure to do is go to your channel frequency table and set this to match what we talked about earlier. Ours is US Cable HRC. Make sure this is set correctly, otherwise it's not going to work. So go ahead and choose Finish, and then you're all done with this little section. All right, so our last step is the input connections. This is really easy to set up. Just go on in, choose the television here for our Video for Linux device, hit Enter, and then we're going to go down to our video source, which is Zap to It.
Which we just set up anyways.
Exactly, so they're going to match. We'll choose Finish at the bottom, and now we are all set up. Now, once you're back at this main configuration menu, all you have to do is hit Escape, and it's going to take you to the main Mythtv menu. First thing you're going to see is Watch TV. If you have your capture card set up properly, all you have to do is hit Enter, and it's going to take you right into live television. You can change channels by hitting the up and down arrows, or if you want to pause live TV, you can just hit the back area and then skip back to what is already kind of cached for you.
Okay.
There's other options too, like manage your recordings. This is where you go in and you actually can schedule recordings from here. You can search by keywords. You can find the name of a program that you're looking for. Or you can just go into your program guide here and scroll through the different listings here and choose which programs you want to record.
One of the other things, though, is you don't have to do this through the Mythtv browser or anything. You can do this over the internet.
Yeah, you can do this over the internet. There's actually a web server that's built right into Myth. So all you have to do is type in the IP address, and it'll come right up, and you can choose pretty much the same thing you can here. Just pick the programs that you want to record. There's other features. You got to remember that this is like a full-blown computer here. So they've added a lot of other really cool features to the system. The ability to play games through MAME in the media library area is really nice. It's kind of cool because you have all your emulator, all your favorite games on there.
There's an image gallery so you can do slideshows.
That's always cool. Also, you can watch your videos and watch your recordings from here or listen to music. But one of the things I really like is the information center. This is kind of some little add-ons that I really like. The news feeder. So if you have an RSS feed that's your favorite, and you don't want to have to turn on your computer every morning, you can just go to your Mythbox to view your favorite RSS feeds. Built-in little mini web browser, system status, and also I really like the weather. So you can define exactly where you live. It'll go out to the Weather Channel and pull down all that information and display it graphically for you, which is pretty cool.
Now, the problem that I noticed with Mythtv is that you end up with a PC in your living room, which most people don't necessarily want. Is there a smaller solution?
Yeah, if you want to get that out of your living room, you want to go down to something a little bit smaller, you can always go with a Mac Mini. They actually have front-end software that runs right on top of OS X. You can install that on the Mac Mini, then you can take your main Myth server, throw that in a closet, then over the network, it'll transfer the videos to the Mac Mini, out of the DVI port, and then go right
straight
DVI
to your HDTV.
To your HDTV, which is pretty sick.
That's pretty cool. Well, that's it for this edition of Systm. If you're looking for any of the links that we had on our show today, go to systm.org.
If you want to help support us, we have a PayPal Donate Now button. We also have some t-shirts, which are pretty cool. If you're a business and you want to sponsor an episode, you can find the information there as well.
I'm Dan Heward.
I'm Kevin Rose. Until next time, later.